Hello colleagues, and welcome to this evening's session where we'll be looking at an introduction to the new National Professional Qualifications. I'm joined this evening by Yvonne Gandhi, Lead Programme Director for the NPQs at Best Practice Network and the Outstanding Leaders Partnership. I'll hand over to you now. You can get us started whenever you're ready, Yvonne.
Just in terms of today's session, we are going to look in greater detail at the NPQs. And from the point of view of participants here today and potential participants, what a fabulous group that we've got. And I hope we give you sufficient information and insight into who we are, what we do, and the programmes that you're going to be applying for, ready for autumn 21. Next slide, please, Hamish. Just this slide gives us an insight into what we stand for, really, and you know, when you're choosing a provider like ours, it's really important, you know, what the values and where we stand. And at the bottom line to me is that we're here to get the best leaders, to get the best for every child, no matter where they are, obviously from our point of view today, in the world. And that's really important to us. And the work that we're going to do with you through the NPQ is about supporting your professional learning, is about supporting you and guiding you through the programme. And more importantly, it is about ensuring that you're even better leaders at the end of your programmes than you were when you started. And at the end of the day, if we achieve that, we actually will get the best for our children in our schools, wherever they are. You know, we are here working together to inspire your learning, to work together. We will act with integrity. And at the end of the day, we want the best. So if you want the best, we do strive for that excellence. There's some data up on that slide as well. It just gives an insight into the width and the depth of what we offer. We are a large professional development provider. We've been doing the NPQs since 2012 with Best Practice Network. And although I only look 21, I've been involved in the NPQs since they started, which is over 25 years ago. And I'm really proud to be here this evening just to share with you the next stage, the next era for the NPQs. And if you just go on to the next slide, please. The great news for the new NPQs is that they've become part of a very clear career pathway in terms of the UK. And that career pathway starts with the trainee teacher and ITT. It goes into the early career teacher, early career framework, and then the NPQs with the specialist NPQs into the senior leadership, headship, and executive leadership. It brings everything together. It's much clearer. It creates this golden thread that the government are talking about at the moment. And really, this go-to qualification that's called the NPQ is actually now part of the bigger professional development picture. It gives us more choices. It's going to give us more opportunities. And more importantly, it's going to give us some direction in order for us to be even better at what we do, have a deeper expertise in what we do, and be able to make that difference to young people that we work with, the locality that we work with, and the staff that they work with. The clearer pathway is also underpinned by much stronger evidence base and in-school practice. So the programme very much will be expecting you to apply what you're learning in practice, to rehearse what you're doing in practice, and to check out and challenge what you're doing in practice. Next slide, please. There are 6 NPQ programmes. In the current iteration, there are only 4. And just for information, the 3 specialist programmes, leadership of teacher development, leading teaching, leading behaviour and culture, those 3 specialist NPQ programmes are replacing the current middle leader programme. All 3 of those programmes will last for 12 months, followed by assessment. The 3 other programmes we may know and love. They may be more familiar to you, but the content is different. the content and its delivery will be different. And the leadership programs will run for an 18-month period, followed by assessment. Now, those of you who are familiar with the NPQs in the current model will know that you had to do 4,000 words for a school improvement project, 5,000 words, or 2 lots of 4,000 words. Well, the great news is that wordage has gone. School improvement projects have gone, but application of learning in practice is reinforcing the learning. However, there will be a final assessment, and that final assessment will be at the end of the 12 months for the specialist programs and will be at the end of the 18 months for the leadership programs. Those assessments will take the form of a case study scenario, and the wordage that you would need to respond to the case study scenario would be 1,500 words. So there's a much lower expectation in terms of the wordage, although the requirement for you to do the assessment is much tighter, and in my view, fits better with the overall pathway. And you'll be required to submit your final assessment response to the case study scenario within an 8-day period following the end of the programme that you've selected to do. It will be unseen, and you'll have eight days to complete. And I'm just going to pause there, and we're very fortunate to have a head, Kylie Spark, with us this evening, and she's just going to reinforce her view as a head on the power of the NPQs before I then move on. Thanks, Kylie.
Evening, everyone. So I've been involved with NPQs since 2012, I think. I've been involved both facilitating, involved in local delivery of the programmes, and as well as a head. I've had staff in my school that have attended and have completed the courses, but also I've worked in my NLE role with a number of heads who have also completed the courses, and other heads within the authority who have gone through the programmes. So I've worked with a number of people who have completed the NPQ programmes, and I really cannot speak highly enough about the OLP programmes and the quality of the programmes, but not only in terms of content, but in terms of how they're delivered and how it develops the leaders at whichever stage they're at in terms of their leadership journey. So the actual programmes themselves are really robust, they're really rigorous, but it's developing leaders' skills of leadership, but also really importantly the behaviours. And I found that the OLP programmes don't only just develop the what of leadership, but also really focus upon the how and the why, and really get the leaders to dig deep and to really think deeply about what leadership is and how to be an effective leader. There's so much opportunity for exploration, for rich discussion, for working with colleagues across sectors, across different schools, across local authorities. And again, that's a really rich opportunity for the leaders to grow and develop. Speaking as a head myself, we've had staff in our schools that have completed ML and SL as they currently stand. And the impact that it's had on them in terms of the quality of their leadership in our school has been really, really stark, and has made a significant difference. Many of them have then gone on to leadership promotion. Some are still with us, but it's really made them stop and think about how they work as a leader, how to get the very best from the people in their team or across the school, and how to achieve the end going that they have, their vision for whatever their area is that they're focusing on, but how to get there. So to have that clarity of why they're doing what they're doing, but and how to get there. The programmes are steeped in practice. It's contextualised at every level, and that again for me is another reason why we've worked with OLP, as I say, for the past 9 years now, I think, because it's very contextualised, it's very real, very practical, but also it's challenging. It challenges those on the course, and I've delivered many a training day with Yvonne, and if there's anybody on the line here who's been part of those training days, they will confirm there is challenge, but it's good challenge. it gets people thinking, it takes people into the pit, and they've got to find the way out of it. But as a result of that, we're growing strong leaders. And speaking to the leaders that I work with, both in my school and across schools that I work with, I can see the impact. So personally, I can't speak highly enough about the OLP programs.
Thanks, Kylie. We didn't pay you to say that, did we?
No, you
I've
didn't.
just
pay me to
noticed
say
the
that.
photo and the hair. Yours is a bit like a COVID long haircut like mine, actually.
Yeah, I'm just thinking how much younger I look on that photo. I should have left my camera on, actually. That was taken a few years ago.
Anyway, thank you ever so much.
You're
and again, colleagues, I've noticed we've started to get some Q&A questions in the Q&A section. Keep throwing your questions into that box, and we will come to them at the end. So please keep putting questions into the Q&A section, and we will answer them towards the end as well. Just next slide, please. And thanks again, Kylie. What this slide is doing for you, if you sort of worry, well, how long is it going to take me? Because Yvonne's mentioned 12 hours, but what's the average? This gives you a timeline, if you like, about how many hours is this going to take me in 12 months or in 18 months. You'll find that there are 3 stages, and on that left-hand side, you've got stage 1, preparation and induction. Stage 2, so this face-to-face to formative assessment tasks, that's the development stage. Then you've got stage 3, that's the summative assessment stage, where you undertake your final assessment. So there's 3 parts to the programme. Induction includes a skills audit, and this audit will provide the critical platform for discussion with your in-school coach or sponsor, your in-programme mentor, your facilitators, and your performance coach. The audit and its outcomes are critical, in my view, as they form the basis for powerful conversations, feedback, a direction for your choices, and also a direction for the depth of study, particularly in the online course study. So really important, colleagues, that when you begin the programme, that induction skills audit at induction, you really take some time and think that through, because your pathway and your ownership of that pathway will start with that skills audit in that preparation and induction stage. Next slide, please. In case you aren't aware, the way we have to design the programme is based on these 10 content areas on the left-hand side of this slide. Those 10 content areas have been directed to us by the Department for Education. They appear in greater or lesser extent in each of the 6 frameworks that were written by the Department for Education and a consultative group. And in terms of the leadership NPQs, we have to cover, and you will need to cover, if you select to come onto the leadership programs, the 10 content areas. Some of the aspects you'll know lots about, and that's why the audit's important. And some of the areas you'd need to apply in practice to a greater depth to really move you on in terms of progress, in terms of your leadership. The specialist NPQs, you can just see by those lovely blue and the ticks in the blue circles there, that's the leading teacher development has 3 key areas of the content areas. Leading behaviour and culture has 5 areas there, and the leading teaching covers 9 of the content areas. We have to plan and structure the programme to include all of those content areas that are indicated on this slide. Underpinning all this, there's a very clear evidence base, very clear resources to each NPQ programme, and specific school practice will be presented in your study to illustrate, well, what does that really look like? Because standing alone, these 10 content areas could be meaningless. So bringing them alive within your study will be linked to the research, will be linked to practitioners' practice, and be linked to the context that we'll write to, particularly in the online study, and that we will, as Kylie's already pointed out, that we will challenge you with some of the activities that are embedded into the online study, and definitely in the different activities and group activities that you'd be involved in, both at face-to-face activities and in terms of the online study. This framework of content areas has guided the way in which we've designed the structure and the pathway of the programme. And if we just go on to the next slide, please. And this is the structure. And to ensure that we get that access, relevance and choice for all, again, and I know I don't want to sort of over-egg this, but the needs analysis, the skills audit is critical. And the way that you complete your application is critical, because the application really is the first stage where we'll get to know you, we'll get an insight into you, and we'll get an understanding of the context in which you work. So that can help us prepare for the way we group you in these face-to-face and online study groups, and the way that we work you together and allocate you to face-to-face events if there's a geographical location involved in that. If you just note there's something that says repeated termly there. The curriculum structure is based on a rotational model, and the rotation will go something like this. So following your induction, you'll go to a face-to-face event. You'll do the online study. Following the online study, you'll apply your learning or research additional information in practice in your workplace. You will then have a performance coach talk to you, and will take feedback, will question you, will challenge you in terms of the progress that you're making, the refinement of your professional profile that started with your skills audit, so that your direction of travel to support you and to be meaningful to you will actually be followed with you into the next cycle. So you'd be going then back into another face-to-face, online study, formative practice activities in the workplace, followed by coaching. Underpinning that cycle, there will be a number of enrichment activities, and they're made up of expert-led webinars, for example, as it said on the slide there, but also learning communities. And that's where your application is important, because depending on the type of your school, the phase that you're representing, where the school is, if it's an international school, if it's a coastal school, the type of school, we can actually look at those applications and decide on the best learning communities that can help. If you're applying for leading teaching, for example, some of those learning communities are going to be subject specific. All of those communities will be dependent on numbers and will be dependent on the intelligence gathering that comes in your application. So again, just a little plea on the application, just make sure you really think that through and really write it up as best you can, because it gives us significant information to get the best pathway for you. That cycle, just go on to the next slide, please, looks then a bit like this. And you'll just notice on this this is one cycle, that there's the skills audit, this is the first cycle. Just notice there's the coach and the mentor review. Going into the face-to-face, again, look, there's a review, there's a discussion, there's some feedback linked to the activities and preparation from the face-to-face, so that you know what to expect in the online course. You're then in the online course, there's a reflective activity, there's activities that's going to just check and challenge with you, that your takeaways from the learning from that 3 weeks of online study. Go into the application in practice. There's a task there for you to go and try. The task, you'll make a choice about it. But look again, there's a coach and mentor with you to undertake review and apply feedback. And then finally, that last part of the stage is where the coach will talk with you so that you can refine, set your goals, realign your goals, and challenge and check in, ready to go into the next cycle. Now, for the specialist route, there will be 3 such cycles, And for the leadership route, there would be four cycles for senior leadership and 5 cycles for NPQH and NPQEL. And if you notice there, the people, there will always be someone there to support you. And those people are coaches, online mentors, and facilitators. So there's 3 core sets of personnel, if you like, in the workforce that would always be there to make sure that you're guided and supported through your learning pathway. Next slide, please. And then just finally, just giving you a picture of this. So we've gone from, this is what the overall sort of pathway looks like. This is then the cycle, just unpacking that. Then this is what the sort of the leadership program then looks like in the overarching delivery model for the leadership route. It just illustrates the core body of knowledge. And you can you see that some of the content areas are represented there? And if anyone wants to bother to count up, you'll find all 10 content areas appear in the 3 courses and the short courses. For those that you've spotted that there are 2 short courses there, and these ethical principles, behaviours and skills, together with school improvement and implementation, in our view, they set the scene for who we are as leaders and the direction setting for ourselves and the strategies to bring about change. Unfortunately, leadership behaviours and leadership skills are not made explicit or embedded within the 6 frameworks. And so we felt it's really important to look at me, the leader, to look at what I believe in, to look at my skill set in order to prepare me, the leader, to be even better and to influence others to bring about change. So we felt it was really important just to put a short, sharp course starter, if you like, to get us to think about who we are and the strategy for me, as well as the strategy for improvements and implementing change as part of that development of me. And for this programme, over 18 months. Next slide, please. The difference for the specialist programme is obviously the 12 months, but the short course is linked to teaching foundations and principles. And the reason for that is that in the framework for all 3 programmes, teaching has no content to it, although it is a content area. And the content for the teaching foundations and principles will need to be extended from the early career framework, which, as I said earlier on, is linked to this golden thread. So getting a handle from the start about my current understanding of teaching effectiveness, teaching efficiency, and teaching standards and principles, and focusing on those areas that maybe you lack a little bit of depth, to do that at the start, to then address your specialism in courses 1, 2 and 3 for the specialism. We felt that was the right way forward. And then you go into the first course will be about, well, what is it, how do we do it, through to how do we design for this specialism, and how do we evaluate and apply it in a way that's going to make a difference to the young people and the great teaching I want to see linked to leading teacher development in this programme. The other 2 programmes follow the same model and the same process. You'll find that the headings are slightly different. And when we send these slides out, we will send them with the other 2 programmes on, so the leading teaching and leading behaviour and culture. When you come to decide which specialism to choose, if you're not sure, it's really important to talk this over with your head teacher and consider with the head what your needs and aspirations are, but also that of the schools, because we've had a lot of phone calls asking us about which is the best programme for me. I think it's really important that that decision is made collaboratively in your own organisations and potentially as part of the wider teaching network or teaching school hubs that your school will be based in. If you want more information about the specialist programmes, I recommend that you go onto the DfE website, and you'll find all the 6 frameworks there for you to have a look at. Just going to hand over to Lyndon Evans. Is he here? Yeah, great. And he's just going to give you a view as a participant before we then just go into fees and funding. I'll take all the questions about the programme later. And can I just say thank you ever so much. If there's anything that I've not given that's not been clear, then make sure you pop a question in the Q&A box, and I'll try and answer them later. Thanks ever so much, everybody. Hand over to Lyndon.
Thanks, Yvonne. Afternoon, everybody. Apologies jumping in slightly late. I had a job escaping the previous meeting, but yeah, I'm here as a representative of the recent NPQ EL, the old version, obviously. But interestingly, I'm also a facilitator, so I've had a lot to do with facilitating on NPQ H particularly. So it's fascinating to see this from two sides, from both sides of the table, if you like. In terms of the NPQ EL qualification, as an executive principal of a multi-academy trust with 6 schools, the programme gave me hugely beneficial new insights into my role. Now, if I tell you that I've been in headship for quite a number of years, and I felt that I was quite an experienced head teacher and had learned a great deal, but nobody ever gets to a point where actually you think I'm done. I've got there, because we are all learning, and the NPQ EL certainly didn't let me down in that respect. What happened, of course, was that my NPQL kind of got started, and we were face-to-face in hotels, which was all fine. And then the pandemic struck, so the program switched overnight almost, which is great credit to the people organising it, because they managed to make it work. So we went from face-to-face live to very much remote. The huge benefits to participants in NPQ EL are that you've reached a certain point in your career, but there are levels beyond that which perhaps even I didn't consider would be valuable to me. I think the level of collaboration across trusts, across other members of trusts, including CEOs, other executive principals, was hugely enlightening, and continues to be, because actually that is one of the great benefits of these programs. I know from my program, NPQ EL, as well as working with NPQH for a number of years, the people that join these programs continue to be friends and valued colleagues for years and years afterwards. And I think that collaboration and that sharing of best practice and that sharing of learning is really, really positive. Another aspect of NPQ EL in terms of opening my mind was that for those of us who've worked in education forever, and perhaps not done anything else, there is another world out there. And there's a huge amount of learning for me and for everybody else in terms of what the world of business industry has to teach us in education. Because leadership is leadership, isn't it? Whether I'm leading in a multi-academy trust of schools, or whether I'm working with Netflix, or wherever I happen to be, we're all able to glean something in terms of new learning. And that's what NPQEL really did for me. Even though perhaps there weren't many people on my course who weren't from the world of education, the amount of learning, the quality of the think pieces, the quality of the research that I was looking at on a daily basis really steered me in that direction. It kind of put flags up, put really good quality questions up for me in terms of how could I do this better? How could we do this better collectively? Because none of us does this on our own. So for me, high quality learning, and this is across the board, but this is for someone who, I have been a head teacher for some years, but still the program gave me that high quality learning. It still gave me that high level of challenge. To work with 4 other schools, whether a pandemic or not, who are similarly amongst multi-academy trusts, great amount of learning there. And still we're doing that long after submission. High level of challenge really pushed me. I have to say, I'll be really honest, I was encouraged to do the program because I thought I was too busy, but actually I'm so pleased that I did, because it's brought so much. What I can now do is what we always ask our participants to do is don't just read about it, go back and do something with it, apply it. So in many aspects of my role now, I'm applying the learning from NPQEL to be a better executive principal, to ensure that that actually is beneficial to the wider trust, but also interestingly to touch base with other people in other trusts. And we've just actually recently started to think about the idea of sabbaticals beyond the world of education in the same way, so that actually great leaders can learn from great leaders. I mean, I did come in and heard Kylie speak. I can't speak high enough of the programs, but as a participant, really valuable learning for me, enjoyable learning. But also, do you know what? You take on a big amount of extra work to do this. Nobody's pretending it's going to be a walk in the park, but the fulfillment and satisfaction from taking on that and committing to that results in, you know, what you get from it at the end of the day and what your organization gets from it at the end of the day. And still learning. So yeah, more than happy to commend the NPQEL, and I think it's very exciting actually to be able to see what's around the corner, all the work that's going on to the new programs. Can't wait to see the details. So thanks.
Thanks ever so much, Lyndon. And just going to hand over to Chris now, who's just going to go into just some of the fees and some of the routes before we then just go into questions and then next steps. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. Yes, so I get left with the money, do I? How wonderful. So it is worth adding the caveat ahead of this piece that all of what I'm about to tell you is subject to DFE sign off. We are still waiting for some confirmation from the DFE, and we are expecting that in early June. So what you see here is where we feel it is and what we're anticipating, but it's not necessarily set in stone. So please bear that in mind as I lead you through this. So just to start by then obviously talking to the course fees, the course fees as you see them for each of those program levels. So those specialist NPQs are all sat there at £895 a piece, and then obviously it jumps up slightly for the different programs as you work your way up through those leadership programs. So for those colleagues that are based in the UK and are based within state maintained schools and academies in England, it is anticipated that there will be scholarships available again. So there have been scholarships in the past for a number of the NPQs, and we are anticipating that there may well be scholarships again. See how careful I'm being about this. And the indications suggest that the NPQH, so the headship qualification, and the NPQ for leading teacher development will hopefully be fully funded for all state maintained schools and academies via scholarships. And the way that system worked previously was that actually you'd apply direct to us, and we would actually collect that scholarship funding direct on your behalf, so you wouldn't really have to do anything except apply as a school. So we are expecting that the leading teacher development and NPQH qualifications will be fully funded, subject to a sign off from the Treasury, etc. And then for the other NPQs, then those other 4 NPQs that sit there again, we are anticipating that there will be some scholarships available, and the indications suggest that these will apply to the 30% of schools that have the highest percentage of pupil premium enrolment within them. And once we get word from the DFE, we will actually have access to that list, and we will be able to inform you of that when we get to that point, so we can check that for you, and we will also be communicating out to you all as well to let you know the situation with that one. It is also worth noting here as well that those course fees are the fees that we're anticipating for our UK colleagues. There are slightly different fees for the international colleagues. These are on the websites, and those international fees might well vary depending on the way in which you engage, and I'll pick up on that one in a bit actually. But so that's the kind of the mainstream look at what those prices might look like, and obviously so there may well be a number of schools there that aren't able to access funded routes into these programs, and there are other options potentially available for you. What is actually missing there, and it might be worth Yvonne actually just picking up on this one, is the additional support offer for new head teachers that the DFE have also rolled out as part of their new recruitment and retention strategy. So Yvonne, do you just want to say a word about that one?
Yeah, if you are a new head and are accessing the NPQH, there is additional funding and a menu of activities which include more coaching, which could include headship mentoring, which could include networking, but that will depend on your needs, because you might decide, actually, if I'm doing the NPQH, I'm also a new head, I don't want any additional stuff just yet. Then you've still got that little banker, if you like, and you can use the bank and select from the menu when you think it's right and suitable to do so. So that's if you're new to headship and applied and got onto the NPQH. If you complete the NPQH in the reform version and then get a headship, for that 2 years, for the first 2 years of headship, after you've done the NPQH, again, you're still eligible for that additional funding and the additional menu. So there is additional funding there. There is a menu that goes alongside the new headship programme, but you must have either be doing the NPQH, have done the NPQH in the reformed model. Unfortunately, anyone that's just got headship in the old model, you would not be able to access that additional funding. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Yvonne. And if you don't mind flicking over to the next slide, Hamish, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Okay, so one thing that we do offer, and again, this will only apply for those schools that are in England. So if you aren't able to access any scholarship funding, or there isn't scholarship funding available, then again, subject to DfE approval, we are still awaiting some confirmations from the DfE, then we will actually, and we do anticipate offering some apprenticeship funded routes into these new qualifications. So an apprenticeship is a work-based training program that's for new and existing staff. And every single school out there in England will be able to access apprenticeship funding. So if you're a state-maintained school, then that will be through your local authority. If you're a multi-academy trust or a school with a salary bill of over 3 million, then you will have your own apprenticeship service account that you can draw down these funds from. And if you're a single academy trust, or you are potentially a Catholic kind of voluntary controlled school, then you might not actually pay into the apprenticeship levy directly, but you can still draw down apprenticeship levy funding through something called the ESFA's co-investment scheme, where they'll actually fund 95% of the cost of an apprenticeship for you. So what we've done to enable schools to be able to utilise these apprenticeship funds is actually create dual award programmes, where you will actually complete the NPQ as if you were completing the NPQ alongside anyone else, in fact. So you'll complete that NPQ, but alongside that you'd also complete an apprenticeship. And that apprenticeship will be at the same level. And we've actually mapped the two together so that they actually marry in really nicely with one another. This is something we've been doing over the last year. We've had somewhere around the 800 participants engage in these dual awards, if you will. We as an organisation are an apprenticeship provider, so we've been able to do that for colleagues. So looking ahead to the new suite of programmes, and from September, we anticipate that the National Professional Qualification for Senior Leadership, so NPQ-SL, and the NPQ-EL qualifications will be available to schools via this dual award route. So you should be able to use your apprenticeship funding to be able to access those. And we've actually mapped, so the SL has been mapped against a level 5 apprenticeship standard for operations/departmental management, and the level 7 against an apprenticeship for senior leaders. So it's a really great opportunity for schools to be able to engage in these qualifications and not have to claw the money out of CPD budget. So hopefully that will enable all schools within England to be able to access and engage in these qualifications in a meaningful way. There is some additionality involved in the dual award route. So yes, you're completing the NPQ as you would always complete the NPQ, but in addition to that, you will have some additional support from an apprenticeship tutor who will meet with you, I believe it's monthly, and you'll also have a termly meeting with your apprenticeship tutor and your school as well to check on progress and to support you. And the apprenticeship route has a bit more of a focus around the skills, so there is a bit of an extra kind of support within that model, and we hope to be able to offer that with the autumn 2021, that's what year we're in, isn't it, intake. And then the other NPQs, the other 4 NPQs, we are anticipating offering an apprenticeship funded route into those as well, and we hope to be able to offer those from February of next year. There's much more information about all of these programs and routes on the website. So if you visit either bestpracticenet.co.uk or outstandingleaders.org, you will find information about all of these pathways and some further information in there. I mean, one of the things that we get quite often is around with apprenticeships is around this. There's a 20% rule in place that's easily navigated, and there's some guidance and advice on that one as well. So if you are unsure and have heard things around that, do check that out, and we can support you with that. It's also worth noting that the websites I've just referred to, I mean, I'm sure there's a link to those at the end of this slides, but there's also we have our expert kind of program coordinator teams on hand as well, and there's a live chat function within that as well, and our teams there will be able to support you with any questions that you might have off the back of this as well. So obviously we'll have a Q&A here, but if you're watching this record and then do have any questions, then pop onto that website and into that chat box, and I'm sure one of our excellent team will be able to help and guide you with that.
Fab.
Right.
Let's Hamish, over to you to try and sort some of these questions. And again, just remind colleagues, if you put a question in the chat box, can you just put it into the Q&A, and then we've got them all there. So if we don't manage to answer all of them, then we can send out a response to them after the event. Thanks, Hamish.
Thank you, Yvonne. So yeah, we've had a few questions come through. Apologies if there was a bit of background noise there, timing of someone coming back. So yeah, one of the most popular questions was actually around the application process and whether we could elaborate perhaps a little bit on that, or if we're not able to now, when would we be able to give a bit more insight into that side of things?
You're going to go, Chris, or shall I? For me, in terms of the application, we can't take applications at this point in time, and that's due to a DfE embargo on taking applications. So until everything's been signed off by the Secretary of State and the call off, what they're calling a call off, has been agreed, applications can't be given out, if you like. As soon as we know when the application is available, colleagues like yourselves will be the first port of call that you'll get an application and a link to it by default. All the applications will be on our website, and the application will include questions about your qualifications, elements of expertise and experience in some of the content areas I alluded to before, and we will be not marking it, but we will need to know, is the programme that you're applying for relevant to the level of expertise and experience of teaching or leadership for which you're applying. So just keep your eye out for the application. It's quite chunky in some ways, but the reason why is we want as much information about you, about your expertise, about the schools that you're in, so that we can, as I said earlier, put you into these community learning groups so that you get the best out of the programme, and it's differentiated for you as well. So is there anything to add to that, Chris?
Just to say that we can collect expressions of interest, and we are also collecting expressions of interest at the moment. So as soon as those we are able to take formal applications, we will alert you to that. So especially if we've got that expression of interest sat there. I'm having a flurry of messages come through from a colleague saying that we've just had an alert from the DfE to say that we aren't able to offer an online only route. So it is worth mentioning that when it comes to delivery, we do work with an awful lot of local delivery partners that you can access face-to-face delivery with and through. And that's not just domestically here in England. We also work with schools groups internationally as well, all over the place. So in the Middle East, Qatar, China, you name it, we've got options for you to be able to engage in those areas as well. And if you are part of a schools group or a larger schools group and did want to do something in-house internationally as well, that is an option, and we can explore that one with you. It's something we've been doing now for a number of years. So those options are all available to you.
Okay, thank you. Another question, and we'll try and give some snappy answers back there, Hamish.
This one could be a quick one. There's another popular one about applications. So how many people are accepted onto the course? Do we have like a limit of the number of places? And are we able to comment on what the application success rate would be? I'm not sure if it would at this stage, with it being a new intake.
For the old model, I could say that for H and EL, we were turning down probably about 8% across the 4 or 5 years that they've been running. And that's mainly to do with the level of experience that those colleagues had. So just make sure when you look at the application that it's really clear. It gives a real clear indicator of what the target audience is and the number of years that you should have been teaching for the specialist routes and the level of expertise and experience for the H and EL routes.
And just we don't have a hard cap or anything like that on the number of places that we're looking at for the new courses.
No. Yeah. However, the DfE does. So in terms of the capping, we don't know the numbers yet because the call out hasn't been. We haven't been informed about what the outcomes are yet. But in terms of overall numbers, they're really going to be dictated by the scholarship. So scholarships may not be. Everybody who is eligible scholarships may not get them because the DfE has a cap on the amount of money they can spend. But we could take as many applications as our capacity dictates. And in the past year, we've probably, I think it was 5,000 last year. You can see my heart pounding now, but we just don't know on numbers. And there are 9 providers. And until we get the call-off outcome and the allocations, we don't know yet. But there's no ceiling for us, but there will be ceilings for the scholarship and eligibility for funding. So I would advise everyone who thinks they could be eligible for funding to get their applications in when it's available early, because scholarships will get to a certain number and then will stop as they've done in previous iterations.
Thanks, Yvonne. Do we advise that teachers take the specialist certification courses before taking the NPQSL, or is it okay to go straight to the NPQSL?
You could go straight for the NPQSL. Again, it depends on your background and experience and the way in which you're able to show that you're ready to aspiring to senior leadership and would have the capacity to work across the school, which is what the senior leadership role is. But yes, you could go straight to SL.
Thanks, Yvonne. Prior to the case study at the end, would we practice a case study beforehand, or would it be completely blind where we have no idea what is coming? So is it like a hidden case study?
It is an unseen case study. However, it would be remiss of us not to prepare you against the content areas, because we have to cover a number of the content areas and a number of the learn that and learn how to statements that that sit within the content areas. You will have choices of activities to do within the online course. When you're doing the application in practice, that's all practice and rehearsal, and everything is embedded into the programme. So whilst the actual case study will be a surprise because it's unseen and we have to change them every intake, we will prepare you to do them. Okay.
Thank you. Do we know who will be marking the assessments on the new NPQs?
Right. Currently, we have our own assessment centre, and we're not going to change that. The assessment centre has to be an arm's length to myself, even, and best practice as an organisation. But the centre, we have over 140 assessors. We will assess the first assessment. We will moderate those assessments that come in, and then there will be a national moderation. There's actually 3 months period where the 8 days to do the assessment, the internal assessment, the internal moderation of the assessment, and then the national moderation. So you'll know at the end of that 3 months if you're successful. If for any reason you don't pass first time, it's exactly the same as the current iteration. You will be given a second go at a different case study. So no one's there to trip you up, but there has to be that quality check to get the qualification. And just one little bit of information on that as well. the decision about gaining the qualification is also aligned to your compliance to 90% of the course content, if you like, which we made up of the face-to-face or the virtual face-to-face, the online study, the formative activities in school. So just bear that in mind. It's the case study plus the compliance to 90% completion of the programme. And that's a DfE identification, not ours.
Thanks, Yvonne. Do we expect the school to provide a coach/mentor, or is this something that would be provided by us to candidates?
That's a really good question, and thanks for asking that one. For the specialist route, because of the diverse nature of colleagues that will be coming onto those programmes, each school who has a participant on the programme will be expected to nominate a coach. We will be training every coach. There'll be an opportunity for those coaches not just to be trained in the foundation 6 hours event, but also to undertake another 2 lots of training that could enable them to access a higher level qualification. For the leadership route, we will be supplying, if you like, the performance coaches, as the performance coaches will be the online person, if you like, throughout the 18 months of the programme. Building relationships is really important to us, as Kylie's mentioned, and it's been mentioned throughout the programme today. And the online mentor and the in-school coach for the specialist route and the performance coach for the leadership route, that building that relationship over time is critical. And the coach in school forms part of that, to the extent that we will bring them together to triangulate progress with the mentor. So again, that skills audit tool, the profile that you're building, will have that interaction too. So yes, in answer to, but specialist route only.
Thanks, Yvonne. I'm just looking at the time. We do still have over 46 questions that have been posed that are still outstanding. So I'll be honest, I don't know if we'll be able to get
just one more. Is there one more that takes a group and that can answer quickly, and then we'll send the Q&A back to you all.
Yeah, we'll address this as an FAQ. There's a quick one here. It might be just a yes/no answer, so we might be able to sneak one more in. But please, could we advise if the NPQH still involves a second school placement task at all?
No, the placement task has gone. However, within the practice activities at the end of an online course, we're recommending the NPQH participants and NPQEL participants do apply practice in a different organisation for a couple of the activities. Again, it's not, it won't necessarily form part of the compliance I mentioned earlier, but we are recommending that you go and apply some of the learning, some of your practice in a different context. That's just for H and EL. Was that quick enough, Hamish?
I think that was. I think we might be able to sneak. There's 2 questions that are somewhat similar, so I think we can address both in the same swoop, hopefully.
Have I got the job? That's what I want to know. I feel as if I've been interviewed. Right, come on then.
Quick fire, isn't it? Yes. So if we had a colleague that was going to be a current middle leader, or perhaps becoming a middle leader in August, for example, if they were currently a leader of Key Stage 3 or something like that, but aspiring to be in senior management, would it be appropriate for those colleagues to consider applying for the NPQSL, or is that mainly focused more towards colleagues already in the senior sort of team?
If they're only aspiring to middle leadership, then it wouldn't be appropriate to go for the SL role. If they're aspiring to SL role of coverage from middle leadership into that wider scope across the school, then yes, all the programmes are for aspirant colleagues as well as colleagues new to post or not being in post for a while.
Brilliant. Thanks, Yvonne. We do still have plenty of questions. I think they're coming through just as quick as we're answering them, despite us trying to rattle through them. So apologies, colleagues, if we haven't had a chance to answer your question live this evening, but we do have the option. We'll download all of these. We'll respond to them in writing, and then we'll issue an FAQ alongside our follow-up message tomorrow with the recording and the slides as well. I have loaded up the sort of final slide, but I am aware that we did sort of skip through one slide that was just before this one. I'm not sure if we do have time for Chris to go through that, or whether we would like to end the session here. But I just thought I'd ask the question.
It was just this slide we've missed, I think, wasn't it, Chris?
Yeah, I think it was just these next
steps. I think it's quite straightforward, this slide, really, and just really go away, have a think which program's best for you. Which program is best for your staff if you're here as a head teacher or a CEO and you've been listening in today. Look at your schools, look at what's best for your own aspiration, the school needs, and even that wider network of schools that you're working within, and then make your choice. By then, we hope that the applications will be live, that you'll make your application, really take time on the application, don't rush it, think about it, because it is the foundation for taking you on a really fabulous journey. The colleagues have mentioned it will be challenging at times. God forbid we don't get COVID in there next year. But more importantly, it is about you. And for once, for all of us, it's something for us, for our needs, and to help us to be better leaders and to get the best for the kids that we work with. So that's what it's about, everybody. So thank you ever so much for taking time. Thanks to Kylie and to Lyndon for coming this evening just to talk about their experience. And just for the final thanks, I'll just hand over to Hamish. Thank you.
Well,
yes.
let me jump.
We'll let Chris jump in. Go on, Chris.
Let me jump in. Just to reiterate a thank you to everyone, obviously, for being involved. I've seen some familiar faces as well in the chat function, including some of our delivery partners that you might well be engaging with locally as well. So we work with a huge network of multi-academy trusts and teaching school hubs. I've seen Claire from the Golden Thread Teaching School Hub is on the call as well. So there's lots of familiar faces out there that you'll all get to know, and it's very much a collaborative effort, this, and working with and for schools. So lots of opportunities for you to engage and ask further questions. Like I said, we'll share that FAQ, but we do have that live chat function on the website as well, and we've got teams of people that you can get in touch with, phone numbers there as well. Obviously, if you're international, you can add +44 to that and remove a 0, and you'll come through to us. And we look forward to hopefully working and supporting with you over the years to come.
Yeah, and thanks, Tom, for setting this up. Really great for the amount of people as well. So thanks, Tom.
Hey, no problem.
I don't know what else I could say that hasn't been said, so I think we'll just look to draw the recording to a close here.